Hello and welcome to another episode of Reflect. And this morning we are looking at Revelation 15. So let's begin by reading our text today. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign. 7 angels with the 7 last plagues, last because with them God's wrath is completed. And I saw what looked like a sea of glass glowing with fire, and standing beside the sea, those who had been victorious over the beast and its image and over the number of its name. They held harps given them by God and sang the song of God's servant Moses and of the Lamb. Great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Who will not fear you, Lord, and bring glory to your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you. For your righteous acts have been revealed. After this I looked, and I saw in heaven the temple, that is the tabernacle of the covenant law, and it was opened. And out of the temple came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues. They were dressed in clean, shining linen, and wore golden sashes around their chests. Then one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And no one could enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed. So as we start chapter 15 today, we begin with the author stating, I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign. This phrase was used last in Revelation 12 to talk about the dragon and the pregnant woman. That's where we talked about Revelation 12 being the Christmas story, if you remember a number of episodes back. So this is drawing our attention to something significant. In this case, shows a vision in chapters 15 and 16 that are images of judgment. The final judgment in a lot of ways. So far in Revelation, we've seen 2 cycles of 7 judgment, previously seeing the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. Now we encounter a 3rd cycle of 7, the 7 bowls. Now, there's 2 trains of thoughts on these 3 cycles of 7 judgments. Some people see them as a total of 21 judgments that happen one after the other. The other explores the imagery and the fact that there's 3 sets of 7 judgments communicate something in and of itself. Complete and holy divine judgment on people. And some people don't necessarily think that these are 21 judgments then, because if you have 7 judgments, that's supposed to be divine, perfect. So there's different thoughts on this. So some see it as more recycling back to the same set of judgment, just described differently again and again. It's more of an image of judgment. Whatever way you see it, in some ways it doesn't matter, because we need to understand the larger message. That 3 and 7, 3 being a number of perfection and holiness and complete, and 7, which is the divine number, is that the divine judgment, God's judgment, is holy and perfect and complete. That's what's being communicated in the book of Revelation. And then, but before we arrive at this judgment that's going to come out, these 7 bowls that we're going to see, we see our attention shifted first to those who are victorious over the beast, those who remain faithful to God, and they are worshiping God, proclaiming his holiness. There's a contrast here. It's not just judgment that's blanket. It's those who oppose God. And those who've overcome the evil of the world, those who have resisted, those who kept their eyes on Jesus, on the triune God, they're victorious. So we then encounter the 4 living creatures again, who are closest to the throne of God, and they provide bowls for the plagues brought out of the temple by the 7 angels. And we're told the bowls are filled with the wrath of God. There's no uncertainty here. The judgment the angels carry comes from God alone. This is his judgment. And then we read about the temple filled with smoke from the glory of God. The smoke scripturally is an image of God's presence, divine presence. And once we see in Exodus, it's one we see in Exodus, and when the Lord descends on Mount Sinai, we see it in Isaiah 6. So it's clear here God is present, and the judgment is God's alone. And we've talked about this before, because we get uncomfortable with this language of judgment. We want God to be a God of love, and he is. And this is actually seen by some as being an image of love. You might say, well, how can that be? It's judgment. Well, for those of us who are comfortable in life without being persecuted, again, we don't fully understand why this judgment's needed. We're shocked by it even. But those who suffer persecution, those who the world beat down, and there's no end to that cycle of suffering, those who deal with the evil of the world firsthand, Well, they draw comfort knowing that those who do evil things will in the end not be the ones who are victorious. They don't get away with it. God is present, as we see in the smoke. God is in control, and God's judgment is going to come on those who would usurp the purposes of his creation, usurp what he wants, what he intends, those who reject him. And those who suffer for him, those who suffer for God, they're victorious. So there's comfort in that for people. And I hope we, living in our comfort, can begin to get our mind wrapped around that not everything is comfortable. And there's many who suffer for their faith and are wondering, God, where are you? And so this tells them God is present right there. There's hope, and God will be victorious, not evil. Next episode, we're going to explore the 7 bowls of judgment that are in this, that are mentioned here, and what that looks like. And so we'll do that next time. And thanks for joining us for this episode, and we hope to see you next time.